My name is Eric Mintel. By night, I'm a professional jazz musician, but by even later at night, I investigate the paranormal. I, along with my team at Bucks County Paranormal Investigations, travel the country investigating all things paranormal. This is Bucks County Paranormal Investigations. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Bucks County Paranormal Investigations, the interviews. Today, we are very thrilled. I've got Bill Birnes in the studio right here, and today from Greenburgh, PA, we've got the one and only John Ventre. John is I guess, John, what would you say your title is?
Right now, just a researcher and a conference coordinator. I'd say just a researcher.
And director of the PA MUFON organization.
Well, I don't direct the group anymore. I retired from MUFON, actually. Okay. So I help them run the conference because it's not an easy thing to do. No,
it's a lot of work. A lot of work.
But I tell you what, though, when I stepped away, because I really wanted to look at the more of the paranormal as far as the demonic, which doesn't really fall in with UFOs and MUFON. Stepping away was good in that I can now kind of say and do things, and I don't have to worry about what hierarchies may say, whatever. So,
sure.
Yeah, I'm just a researcher at this point, I would say.
And plus, you do a lot of research in the whole area of Bigfoot.
Yeah. Well, Fred Saluga is the Bigfoot guy.
Right.
I kind of help him a little bit on that, but he's the expert in that. I'm very little with Bigfoot.
Well, we had a guest on recently, and who has had a lot of Bigfoot sightings in the New Jersey Pine Barrens, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And recently over here in Bucks County, we've had one too, which you actually sent me the report.
Right.
But John, before we get into all of this great stuff, I always wanted to ask my guests, what was the fire in the belly that made you want to be a paranormal investigator or get into the paranormal itself?
Yeah. Well, my story is very different than most people in this field. When I've talked to people like with MUFON or other people that lecture, they either saw a UFO when they were younger or they were into it right from the beginning. And I really had no interest in UFOs until I was around 40 years old. I mean, I was a Comic-Con, Famous Monsters of Filmland.
Oh,
I collected.
Yeah.
I mean, I got 100 issues dating back to the early 60s.
Oh, hold on to those, man.
They are valuable, John.
They're valuable. There's your retirement right there.
Yeah, I know they are. Yeah. But you know what I did? In order to order more issues, when I had a paper route as a kid, I would cut the form out, not ruin that issue. Because now I've defaced it by cutting out the order form. But, I was, UPS had put me on a special assignment, and I was traveling the country for 18 months. I was getting real bored, so I always wanted to write a novel. So I remember I was in Boynton Beach, Florida. I got a pad of paper, and I just started writing my 2012 Prophecy Mayan calendar sci-fi novel. And by researching that, it seemed to me that a lot of cultures were talking about people from the stars, sky people on flying shields and stuff. So I said, let me look at the UFOs. So I think it was 98, I joined MUFON. Really didn't get too heavy into it until about 05 or 06. Because the first few years, they just weren't giving me cases, and they were pretty disorganized, So then I kind of got, I started doing that. And next thing you know, in 08, we get the big Bucks County case.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
So I'm on TV. Then I just became the state director. I'm on TV. Then next thing you know, I'm on the Anderson Cooper show.
Yeah.
Then it's a number of episodes on Discovery Science and UFO Hunters.
Yep.
And then I'm on 2 years on the History Channel. So I almost feel like I got roped into this. It sought me
in a good way.
I didn't seek it out. It sought me out.
Sure.
That's true. That's true. And that whole Bucks County flap, I mean, you were all over that. And the fascinating thing about the Bucks County flap was how many people saw this. It wasn't just one person or two people.
Right.
This was, and I think you pointed this out, the track of these craft coming over the Philly airport, then all the way north across Bucks County, and then into Hunterdon County, New Jersey.
Yeah. Yeah, it was incredible how many people saw it. I mean, it was almost like Hudson Valley. You remember that?
I sure do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, over 7,000 witnesses. It went on for, I think it was 12, 13 years. I mean, this was a short thing that went on for maybe 5 months in that area, and then it kind of dissipated.
Right.
But, I mean, I guarantee you there were, thousands of witnesses to this. And in that one little period, as a state, we were getting, I remember, it was 92 cases a year. We're always in the 90s. And all of a sudden, we got 335 cases. And Bob Gardner investigated most of them along with Alyssa Simon, and then I assisted. But, we got more cases in a 3-4 month period than we got in 3 years.
Mm. So, and you were part of one of the cases, which was really interesting, which we were just talking about earlier, was that you had on the Denise Murder's property, she had a UFO over the house, but it sent down a beam onto the tree in the back. And tell us about that, because there was actually some evidence on the tree.
Yeah, it wasn't a beam. It was like these metallic sprinkles.
Right.
And she said they kind of came down like snowflakes. They landed on her tree. And then they kind of got sucked back up, almost like a magnet or something, and pulled them back up. And I remember when we were looking into it, there were some other cases. I think there was one down in Mexico. There were a few other cases.
Well, there was a case in Texas.
Yeah.
I forget her name, Galvez, I think, where her chickens were disappearing, and she wanted to find out who's stealing my chickens, right?
Yeah.
You'd want to think that. So she set up one of these infrared cameras. I don't know if it was a FLIR or whatever, but it was an infrared camera, and it was the exact same thing that Denise was talking about.
Yeah, and it's not a frequent thing with these metallic probes or sprinkles. This is something that doesn't happen a lot. I mean, I don't think you could find 10 cases in the whole history of UFOs that had metallic sprinkles dropping down on the tree. I don't think that's our government testing that out. I mean, because it has happened elsewhere. But, and Bob Gardner, he had cut off the leaves, and, and we have a procedure we follow. Sure. And you used to do this with us, too, Eric.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So he bagged them up. We sent them to 2 different labs, along with leaves from a different tree in the yard, a tree across the street. So there was a control to it, and we sent it off. And it was interesting how it came back. The 2 labs looked for different stuff, right? So and Dr. Levengood got involved, and Nancy Talbert.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So on the one test, they found evidence of high heat and radiation, almost like the leaves were like veins in them and stuff, and these holes were in them, but they weren't chew holes from insects. They were almost like from high heat, like a laser had burnt into the leaves. And then they formed differently, instead of having that roundness, they kind of had more of a heart shape to them. It was very strange, And then the other test with Nancy Talbert, I think Levengood was involved in that part, and then Nancy Talbert sent it off to Phyllis Budinger and got involved, and they found really high levels of boron on the leaves. It was about 4 times higher than it should have been. And it's like years after, Bill, when we did UFO Hunters and all that, I found Fawcett's repetitions, if you're familiar with that. He lists all the things that happened in trace evidence, and there it was, number 6, high boron and magnesium. We had slightly elevated magnesium, but high boron. That's amazing.
And it was amazing too, because it was there. Well, you said there was a baby robin's nest.
That was the other thing too that she talked about, the baby robin, and then the robin is like shriveled up and dead.
Yeah, the robin died. It was there in the nest, and then after this happened, the bird was dead.
And
so it was strange.
And it occurred on the outside of the leaves too, which is amazing, because nothing was wrong on the inside part of the tree.
Yeah. So
incredible.
I think they were some sort of probes that they dropped in, and then they just sucked them back out, But it was. I tell you what, that was, I think, one of the best cases. It's almost like my claim to fame in the UFO field because I did it on 5 different TV shows.
Oh, yeah.
Right, it was fascinating.
It was, and it's still being talked about to this day. And I think you even had Cliff, was the guy. Cliff lives in Doylestown. He actually had radar evidence and actually saw like an octagonal craft going over his house.
Yeah. Well, that was the second big case. But let me just tell you, with Denise's case, it started to come up again, I think, after we did your UFO Hunters segment, and then it got more publicity, and the housing development, because she rented, he cut the tree down. He cut the tree down.
Unbelievable.
Unreal.
Yeah, he said, well, it was a safety issue because it was too close to the house.
The owner of the property?
The owner of the housing complex cut it down. But what it was they didn't want people showing up and trying to get in the yard and look around and all of that. So he cut the tree down, so...
Unbelievable.
Who knows, Bob? I mean, I got the reports. And you know what's interesting, Bill, too? 3 of the 4 lab people involved in that case got cancer.
Not Phyllis, right? Phyllis didn't get cancer. Phyllis Budinger, she didn't get cancer, did she?
No, she did. I think she
Really?
had a mild. Let me think who it was. It was maybe not Phyllis. I think she might be the only one. It was Nick Ryder. He died of cancer. 11 Good died of cancer, and Nancy Talbert got cancer also. So I think Phyllis might have been the one of the 4 that didn't get it.
And Nick Ryder, here's the funny thing. Well, when you mention that name, it's BLT Labs, right?
Yeah.
Nick Ryder, when years ago we were talking about the Nazi bell, right?
Yeah.
Nick Ryder did this experiment. Because the big thing was, what was it? Was it a UFO? Was it a time machine? What was it? My personal theory was that it was always a uranium enrichment device.
Okay. Yeah.
Nick Ryder did an experiment with it. Same thing, counter-rotating cylinders of heavy metal. I don't think it was red mercury, but it was heavy metal. And he tried to establish what it was. The radiation from that was so intense that Ryder shut it right down and said, and he's the one who told me he thought it was a nuclear enrichment device, and that would have been the device to enrich radium for a Nazi nuclear weapon. Yeah. And then you watch the Philip K. Dick story, The Man in the High Castle, and of course, what are they talking about? The Heisenberg device.
Yeah.
It just clicked like that.
Yeah. Well, it's really odd that 3 out of the 4 lab people get cancer, and if you remember the Nazi bell, they were saying that like plants on the table, it sucked the chloroform right out of them.
Exactly.
Some of those scientists died. I mean, this is a strange field to be in. I can tell you that much.
Fascinating, absolutely.
And Phyllis Budinger, of course, was the one who analyzed the pink stains, the pink hand marks on Betty Hill's dress.
Oh, okay. I didn't know it was her.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Phyllis also did in Delphos, Kansas, the material that was left by the UFO. Same kind of idea, right?
Delphos, Kansas, sure.
Yeah, so,
back in the 70s.
They get involved with these cases, and they're picking something up that's not natural.
Right. And what a field to be in. I mean, it's just. I mean, the stories are incredible. I mean, I always say that there's got to be some truth to the folklore, right? Because there's stories that are handed down generation to generation. Now you just got a report of when we just were talking about Bigfoot. Now you're talking about these large upright canine creatures. Now I know I interviewed Stan Gordon last year. We were talking about in 1973, 74 time frame, they had a lot of Bigfoot sightings with red glowing eyes. What are you getting now? What are you getting out there? Are you getting?
Yeah, well, it's funny. I don't get the MUFON reports because I retired from all of that. But I see them and they end up on different other people's websites and stuff. But we just had one that was over in your area with they called it Dog Man. And I remember with Fred, because he's more into crypto. I'm not.
Sure.
I'm the UFOs more with analyzing the craft and what it could be. And then I got into more of the demonic side. But Fred is the crypto guy. So I said, "What is a dog man?" He goes, "A werewolf." Okay. Well, we don't want to call it werewolves then, I guess.
John, did you ever have an experience? Have you ever seen anything UFO?
No, I've never seen in the 22 years that I've investigated this, and we've done sky watches, and I've done them with people in the area. I've never seen anything, And for me, my stuff has always been on the haunting side in my house, involving my kids in 3 different homes. And this thing, whatever it was, has followed us. But I'll tell you real quickly, not to get off into that, though.
Sure.
It's that from something else showed up in June of 14. We kind of drove it out, with holy water and stuff and prayer. And then it came back in November of 15. And I had about a 22-month battle. I mean, every night it was like the Exorcist movie.
Wow.
Banging, noise, movement, all kinds of shadow people, stuff like that. And last January, about a year ago, I was asked to be in a low-budget movie called The Exorcism Prayer, where they interviewed 5 priests and they specific cases. The priest came to my house. He's done exorcisms. He says, part of this is I'm going to cleanse your home. And he did it with blessed oil and holy water, crosses over every window and door. Boom, gone. Even my daughter-in-law came over and said, "John, your house feels totally different.
Wow.
There's not that heaviness in your house." So it's been gone now for a year, for about 13 months. So, but getting back to Doylestown, because you brought that up, with the Bucks County case, that also was a great case. You had this guy Cliff, who was a retired contractor, and he's seeing the 6-sided gigantic mothership, right?
Right. Yeah.
Moving like 20 miles an hour. So, I mean, it couldn't be a plane or anything like that. So Bob Gardner goes down to the Philly Tower. He gets cleared because it's after 9/11. And he tells them what he has. They go to their tapes, and it's at, let's say it was 3 in the morning on May 15th. They had on their radar a large object with no transponder in the sky that moved off to the northeast towards New York. It matched his report 100%. I mean, it was incredible, So we had and then even the whole radar thing turned into this unbelievable, where I couldn't get them to acknowledge that happened afterwards, I sent 3 FOIAs. They came back and said there was no records anymore. So I went to Schultz, was the guy with MUFON out in Denver, and he told me the procedure. I told them the procedure. They mailed me the discs, which I have, the CDs with the radar, with a note. I run an efficient office, and yes, we do have them.
Wow.
But I'm looking at 3 FOIAs that say, no, we don't have them, So you could never get them to admit what was there. And then what they sent on the disc, they had taped over.
It reminds me of the way the FAA handled the OHare Airport sighting from from back 10 years ago. Remember, the FAA, everybody sees this. The ground crew sees it. The pilots see it. They take a cell phone of it, and the FAA denies it ever happened. And so this guy from the Chicago Tribune, I'm not sure which newspaper. And he's the transportation editor. So he's not a UFO guy. He's not a paranormal guy. He's like the transportation guy, right? He gets this story. So he goes to the tower and he says, well, what did you see? Nothing. We didn't see anything. Nothing. No, it's a big mistake. It's clouds. They saw clouds. So he says, well, I'm going to file a Freedom of Information request. Sure enough, they sent him all the radio transmissions.
Yeah, they had it on the tower talking to their people who were looking right at it. So they had the tapes.
And then this thing punched a hole in the clouds, and you could see the blue sky through it. So it was like...
Yeah, and it's funny. I was on the Anderson Cooper show in 2012, and Joe Nickel was there as the skeptic.
Right.
And he was saying it was, I can't remember what was the excuse that
it was
they
reflection.
used about,
I think it was reflection of lights from below or something.
No, it was ice. It was ice ice falling that cut the whole, and I said, well, okay, wait a second, Joe. It was 54 degrees that day, so I don't think just 100 feet up it became 30 degrees. Then there's a term for that, snow, ice that falls and cuts it open. But it was too warm.
Right,
it was too warm that day. It couldn't be.
Yeah.
And of course that got cut out of the show, like a lot of what I said, because it was pre-taped.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, that was a whole nother, thing that, they laughed at Joe Nickel when he said it was Jupiter that they saw, I praised the three women that was there, Denise and these two other girls from Kentucky that had a case, and the whole audience applauded. They cut it out. I mean, it was incredible. Anderson, he says, well, are you telling me the government can keep secrets? And I said, yeah, they kept the Manhattan Project secret. Stealth fighter is 1976 technology that they brought out in 88.
Wow.
And they edited that part out because it was starting to sound too good.
That's unbelievable. That reminds me of like a thing I just saw with Donald Kehoe back in the 50s. That he was talking about the UFOs, and then they cut the audio off.
Yep. Yeah. Well, it's kind of funny, with MUFON. Of the board members, I was probably the least experienced because, like I said, I had no interest in UFOs. So I got into it really there a couple of years earlier in 08, it's 2012. All the board members, nobody wanted to go on the Anderson Cooper show. Now, come on, you've been doing this 30 years. You're a lot more versed than me. But I said, well, John, you live the closest. Why don't you go? And you're from New York. They kind of sent me as like the slaughtered lamb. But I held my own.
Sure.
I really did.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought I did pretty good on it.
Well, that's one thing with you, too. You've really conducted yourself in these cases, like right to the T. You've really done the research, whereas a lot of people haven't. And you really have done that research and have a lot of that evidence still to this day.
Yeah.
Right, and you're a physical evidence guy, so it's not as though it's like, oh, this is what I believe, this is exactly what I found, and this is what we analyzed.
Yeah, because at UPS, I was the head of security at UPS. And, at that time, I had 3 states, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Virginia. And I'll tell you this, of the thousands of people we ever fired and maybe 700 we arrested, I never got sued. I never lost one case. Actually, I never got taken to court on a case because if I didn't have the evidence, I didn't terminate. And I wouldn't arrest, to make a number of how many arrests I had. Right. I knew what I needed, and I'm actually very proud of that. And even people who got fired from the company for doing something wrong would call me as a character witness because they knew I wasn't going to lie. Right. That I say what I knew about the person, as a character witness against the company, which they didn't like.
Sure.
But I wasn't going to lie.
Yeah, reputation is everything, of course, absolutely. Yeah. We have a couple of minutes left, but I wanted to say that, that report about the Bigfoot Wolfman in Bucks County, Bill and I are going to go down and check it out. So we have an actual Bigfoot researcher that's going to join us too. So we'll give you a kind of heads up on what's going on there.
We will, and then we're going to see you in April at the conference.
Right, that was the other thing.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, April 24, 25, we're doing the 13th annual conference there in Bucks County. And I think we've done about 10 years there at that Sheraton, 9 or 10 years. But this is our 13th year in a row.
And this is for MUFON.
Right. Yeah, we got a great lineup. It's April 24, 25. I got my little poster here with everything on it.
And I'll put it up on the screen, too.
Yeah, and what we're doing, we're going back to free field investigator training. So from 1 to about 4, there's 4 speakers for free training. And then either Fred or I are going to talk about Native American superstitions. James Krug's going to talk about Planet X and astronomy.
Oh, wow, that's great.
That's going to be cool.
Yeah, Joe Flammer is UFOs of America. Christopher O'Brien is that UFO data acquisition. David Marler is Battle of L.A. David Paulides is Bigfoot, Wild Men and Giants. Randall Nicholson is the John Mack case in Zimbabwe.
Oh, Rue, Zimbabwe, sure.
Yeah, and we got Gerald Artson flying in from the Netherlands to talk about UFO and the transformation of the world. And then, Bill, you're going to talk about UFOs, Maryland, JFK, Area 51. And then we got our Q&A. I think our thing that we do there is better than the symposium, to be honest with you, because it's like a third of the price. And the people got, they spend half a day and then a full day. You got the Q&A, and I mean, for the price what we charge, we make like $3-4 a person. That's all. We're not trying to make a ton. You get all of that for like $98.
And it's very collegial. It's like everybody there. There's no fighting. There's no arguing. Right. It's not as though you've got the skeptics here and the true believers there, and then the science people in the middle. No, this is very collegial, and people really share a lot of experiences in terms of their own research. So it's a fabulous conference.
Yeah, you're getting like 9-10 speakers, and I think, Bill, you've done maybe 11 of the 13, somewhere like that.
We were at the first one. Remember that first one at the community college?
Yeah, that was so cool. Here we are. We're doing our first event based on the Bucks County case. And I'm saying to myself, well, I got to get Bill Birnes and then myself. And I said, who else? So I said, all right, David Jacobs. So the three of us show up. We didn't know what to expect, 600 people show up.
It was astounding, and they were coming from the entire Northeast. So it wasn't just Bucks County. You saw people coming from Upper New York State, from Western Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and you know what was cool, Bill? The staff there at the college, right? Like most of these college people, they get us all set up, and they said, "Okay, we're going home." Best thing they could have done. The room held 250. We had 600. They were sitting in the aisle, sitting on the steps, standing in the back. We violated the fire code by times, But it was good. They left it to us. So.
That's a beautiful
But it was
thing.
a great conference. It was the biggest conference I've ever, held.
Wow.
With 6. I've never matched that. Our other conferences get 300.
Yeah.
But because of the flap going on, we had 600 people. And it's funny, Bill, charged $10 to get in, and that then funded every conference afterwards, where we could just try to do it for about $3 profit per person, have enough money, pay all the speakers, and we were able to do 13 conferences off of that first one.
That's phenomenal.
Because we made enough money off of that.
So let's invite everybody this year.
Absolutely.
April 24th. Tell us the venue again.
Yeah, it's at the Sheridan, Bucks County. Starts 1 p.m. Friday, April 24th, and then all day Saturday, the 25th. Now, the sleeping rooms you got to get before like April 1st.
Okay.
And you go to MUFONPA.com and you register for the event.
We're going to make sure this is way out. This is going to be out way before that.
Everybody listening to this, make it a point. This is a great conference. Is George Filer going to be there this year, maybe?
Yeah, he comes every year.
There you go.
Cool.
Yeah, 2 of the last 4, but he comes as a guest. And when you think about it, nobody really in the Northeast is doing these events.
Right.
The UFO field has become a West Coast thing. Like I look at MUFON, they're a West Coast organization. They do their conferences in California and Vegas. I don't even know that they're coming back this way. I got them to come to Cherry Hill in 14 and 18. And I put both of those events together. But I don't know if they're coming this way. The Ancient Alien Con thing came to Baltimore one year, but you don't see anything else out this way. No. So we're basically it.
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to be great. Well, we're looking forward to it. I know that. And so, John, thank you so much again for joining us today and for all of the work you've done. It's phenomenal. You're really leaving a legacy behind. So this is great. Thank you so much.
And we'll see you in a couple of months.
We'll see you in a couple of months.
Right.
And,
Thanks,
ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us again on Bucks County Paranormal Investigations. Stay tuned this season. We've got a lot of great guests. So from Bill Birnes, Eric Mintel, have a great day.
Thank you, John.